What is up, JT Squad? Welcome to Wyoming to Vegas, the life of JT, part 3. We're going to dive into my adulthood, moving away from home at the age of 18. Y'all know what's coming next. There can't be a storytime video without something JT is sipping on. This time we have the Henry's Zero Sugar Hard Sparkling Water. First time I ever tried it. This is the Blueberry Lemon. It's pretty darn good. No carbs in it. Well, I think it has like 1 carb or something like that. It's very low in carbs. So we're trying to do the low carb thing. We cheated a few days. We've been in the process of moving. But we're back on the bandwagon with the low carb. And this is what we're sipping on for this video. Enough mumbo jumbo about the drinks. Let's dive into this video. Before we do dive in, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. You got that little bell. Click for notifications so you're the first one notified when all new videos drop. We are closing in on 3,600 subscribers. We got 6 days away till we're moving to Las Vegas. And big exciting news. We're gonna do a first 30-day daily vlog from Vegas. So it's gonna be interesting, it's gonna be crazy. A lot of work for me, but I'm gonna bring it to you guys because I want you to know and see what it's like moving to Las Vegas your first 30 days. All right, so you guys remember me talking about meeting a friend. He lived in North Carolina, was from North Carolina. So he was talking, well, how about you move to North Carolina? I was sick of Wyoming like I talked about. I was like, well, you know, I don't know. I've never been there. That's a long ways. It's all the way on the East Coast. He said, how about we do this? For Christmas, we're going to go visit my family up in North Carolina. Why don't you come with us? Come visit. You ride along with us. We're going to be driving there to be a little, you know, vacation slash road trip slash, you know, introducing yourself to North Carolina. I said, yeah, that's a good idea. So the time comes, we head up into North Carolina. We go through San Antonio, stay with my friend's future wife's friends or whatever up in San Antonio, Texas, which, by the way, San Antonio, Texas was awesome. It was hot, but it was pretty cool there. We ate some authentic Mexican food. We chilled out or whatever. I was still young, so I wasn't really drinking. So anyways, we get to North Carolina. You know, we start meeting some of my friends and family and everything like that, and it was a blast. Matter of fact, they had an 18 and up club. They took me all up in the club. You know, I was new to this whole scene, new city, man. I was digging North Carolina, I ain't gonna lie. I actually moved to like a outskirts of Charlotte, North Carolina. It was called Statesville. It's real close. It's probably like, I think, a 30-40 minute drive. So you know, I was digging it. I was like, yeah, you know, I like it. I stayed there. We had a lot of fun. We came back. So when we got back, he was like, you like it? And I was like, heck yeah, I love North Carolina. So that was my plan, to move to North Carolina next. All right, so I'm living in North Carolina with him, his wife, his son. And I remember he was telling me, well, I'm getting a house. I got me a house, you know, lined up and everything when I go down there. Well, he didn't have a house lined up. So I was staying with his parents, and there was a bunch of people staying there. There was people everywhere, you know, and I was staying there for like a week or two, and I was like, man, I'm not, you know, I wasn't really feeling the vibe, you know, there was just too many people around, and, you know, I wasn't really feeling it. I remember my mom's twin sister, husband, and my 2 cousins lived in South Carolina, and I remember my mom was like, you know, my son's in town, you know, so they were like, well, come visit us. So I think they came and picked me up. My cousin came and picked me up. We visited them or whatever, and you know, they live really good. My aunt and uncle have lived a pretty good life. My uncle works hard, and he was a big time boss for a big time company. So he was like, well, we got this extra room, you know, if you pay rent, you know, you could stay here. And I was like thinking, you know, maybe I'll go back to North Carolina. And I was like, no, because, you know, there was just too many people, not enough room. So then I decided to move in with them in South Carolina. So I started working at this Walmart up there. It was a cool little job. Like, you don't get paid that much, but I was paying, you know, my little portion of the rent, which wasn't that much. They weren't charging me that much, but it was showing responsibility and everything like that. So, you know, it wasn't too bad in South Carolina. So I'm living in South Carolina a while, you know, it's going good. My cousin, my older cousin, big shout out to her. She actually got her own place and everything like that. And then it was like me, my other cousin, that's like one or 2 years younger than me. I can't remember how old he is. And then of course my aunt and uncle, you know, and it was all right, you know. But then my uncle got a big promotion offer in Florida, South Florida, West Palm Beach to be exact. So they're like, well, you know, you're living with us, you're gonna move with us, you know. So I remember his company paid for us all to fly down there, and we stayed like at the Marriott. I remember this, and I was like culture shocked, because living in Wyoming, growing up in Wyoming and moving first of all to North Carolina, then to South Carolina, then the possibility of moving to South Florida. Everybody talks about living in Florida. So we go down there and visit, and you know, we're loving it. Me and my cousin, we're going on the beach, we're playing football, frisbee, you know, it's a blast. We're digging South Florida, and my uncle was like, well, you guys like it here? We're like, heck yeah, we like it here. So I remember he told his company, yeah, I'll take the job offer. So we ended up moving all the way down to South Florida, West Palm Beach. We actually lived in a suburb of West Palm Beach, one of the other outer cities. It was kind of like in the wooded area and stuff like that. It was really nice out there. My aunt and uncle had a really nice house, a swimming pool and everything like that, and they still live there to this day. But you know, I was all digging Florida and stuff. I started working at this barbecue joint, you know, making a little money. It's kind of funny though, because what people don't realize living in Florida, you think, you know, the cost of living is really high, that they pay you like a ton of money. No, the jobs are like normal. Like I pretty much got paid the same amount as living in like Wyoming that I would in Florida. You would think the minimum wage would be like $15. No, that's not the case. So I started working at this barbecue restaurant, you know, vibing out. Me and my cousin were going to the beach all the time, having fun. We were digging South Florida. My older cousin didn't want to move, so she ended up staying in South Carolina, you know, because she had a place or whatever and stuff like that. And they were talking about trying to get her to move too with us. You know, obviously she had her own place and stuff. So she decided to stay because her and the person she was with bought a house. So, you know, they were like, nah, we're going to stay here. So I'm living in Florida a while, you know, and my mom and stepdad, they were still in Wyoming, remember, in Laramie, Wyoming. So they decided to move to Florida too. My mom was sick of there. My mom's never been a big fan of the cold. It always affects her body, her joints, her muscles, her hands, and everything like that. So, and she always wanted to be closer to her twin sister, because her twin sister used to live like in New York, South Carolina, all on the East Coast, and she was never really that close, living close to her, so she always wanted to be closer. So she decided to move to Florida. My mom and stepdad, they bought a little house up there and everything like that. And I was staying with my aunt and uncle, and then I ended up renting a room because they had like this little side thing, my mom and stepdad. So I ended up renting this little side room or whatever from them for a little bit. Then I ended up moving in with a friend and his girlfriend. That didn't work out, so I ended up moving back in with them. Well, at this point, they were having a bunch of marital problems and stuff like that. So they ended up getting a divorce. It was a quick thing. There wasn't no, you know, huge warning. There was a little warning, but not a huge warning. So I was pretty much, had my car. I didn't really have anywhere to go, and the cost of living in Florida was expensive. I was working at this barbecue joint, making like $8 an hour, I think, back then. So I was pretty much living in my car for a while. I was super down and out at this point. My mom ended up moving in with an abusive guy that she ended up hooking up with. He was beating her up. I was living in my car. Like, I rented a couple rooms in real shady areas, and it was just not going good for me. I had like no money back then. Luckily, I had my car to sleep in because I could always go to like Walmart parking lot and places like that. So I ended up calling my cousin, the one from South Carolina, my aunt and uncle's daughter or whatever. And she was like, well, why don't you come back to South Carolina? You could stay with me and the person I'm with. We got an extra room. So I'm thinking about, I'm like, yeah, I really like Florida. I love Florida. I miss Florida to this day. I decided, you know what, it's the best decision for the situation I'm in. So I ended up moving back to South Carolina, living with my cousin and the person she was with, and I'm getting this little waiter job, real corny job. Like, there wasn't a lot of jobs. She lived in a place called Woodruff, South Carolina. It was outside of Greenville, Spartanburg, that kind of area over there. Little ritz, or not a ritzy, like a little hickey, like little country town. And by the way, if anybody's ever lived in South Carolina or North Carolina, it's still real segregated. You know, there's a lot of racism going on there. It's just ridiculous. Like where I live, there's not really nothing like that, you know, so I never really seen anything crazy like that, but it's really segregated there. So I started doing this little waiter job. Eventually I moved up to a cook there. You know, it was going really good. Everything was going smooth. You know, I ended up renting a room with another guy. You know, we were going good. Everything was going smooth. You know, I got me a nice Cadillac, 94 DeVille. You know, I was rolling good. You know, I had my Cadillac, my job. I was renting a room from a supposed buddy of mine. Well, one night we were playing poker. I like to play Texas Hold'em. You guys see I had the cards in my hand, and I was just hustling the table, you know, because it was in this house I was living at, and you know, I'm sitting there hustling the table, and this dude, you know, I'm like, give me the money, you know. He tried to say, I said something disrespectful to him. I can't remember what he tried to say. I said, well, this dude sucker punched me in the nose. So, you know, I fell back, I pushed him, he busted this mirror, he ended up kicking me out of his place, you know. So I'm like, what the heck am I gonna do, you know? So I'm back homeless in my car again. I'm like, oh great, this ain't going good either, you know. So I ended up driving to like Atlanta, because I used to drive up to Atlanta all the time, staying in this hotel for like a few days. He ended up calling me back, trying to apologize, and you know, I wasn't really having that at that point. At this point, I met a woman. She lived in, she was from Washington. So she was visiting or whatever, so I ended up moving to Washington, all the way to Washington State, because, you know, I had nowhere to go. Like, I was actually vibing this woman and stuff like that. So I ended up moving all the way to Washington State. And so I ended up moving all the way over there. You know, I had other things that happened, but it'll be another story time. I'll do a special story time of different scenarios that I had happen to me in South Carolina and stuff like that. But I ended up moving back to Washington State with this woman. So, you know, everything's going good the first few months. You know, we're getting along good. We got a place, you know, I'm working a good job. Like, everything's just rolling, you know. I'm like, heck yeah, everything's going great again. Well, we start having problems. We start arguing all the time. And then it was crazy because I suspected like she was pregnant. I was like, man, I wonder if she, you know, I think she's pregnant. Just all the signs are there. She would never go to the doctor. I'm like, let's get a test. She's like, no, I ain't getting no test, you know, and stuff like that. And every time I talked about getting a test, she would blow it off and everything like that. So I'm like, all right, whatever. So every time we'd argue, she would try to throw my stuff on the lawn, her lawn, because it was her place. So I paid like a bunch of bills, and like next thing you know, she throws all my stuff out there. So I call my buddy, you know, I'm like, I'm sick of this. So I finally get back in the house or whatever. We didn't really work it out that much, but we were kind of like on speaking terms a little bit. But then she ended up staying at her mom's house. So I called my buddy. I was like, hey man, you got a place I can crash out back here in Wyoming, actually in Laramie? And he's like, yeah man, you know, it's cool, because he was staying at his parents. They're like, it's cool, you could stay here, no problem. So I ended up getting on a Greyhound and going all the way back to Wyoming from Washington. So kind of like a full circle situation. So I'm like staying at, you know, my buddy's house with his parents, and I grew up around them and stuff like that. So I'm like thinking, you know, it's good. I'm applying at jobs, expecting to get a job here soon and everything like that. So I'm staying at my buddy's parents' house with him and his parents and stuff like that, you know. And then one day, you know, I'm there about a week and a half. So we're out there, you know, I've been applying at jobs and everything like that. Nothing came across so far. I'm like, all right, I'll get a job here soon. Anyways, they come to me and they're like, what day are you going back to Washington State? And I'm like, what? So apparently my friend never told him that I was going to stay there permanently. I guess he was just saying he was going to come visit. I was going to come visit. So of course, you know, they get, you know, I'm like, I thought I was staying here. And so they get into a big argument and everything like that. And, you know, next thing you know, they pretty much boot us both out. So my buddy calls his friend. They live in like Rock Springs. I don't know his friend or whatever. So they're like, oh, no problem. We got an extra room and everything like that, or extra couple rooms or something like that. So I'm like, all right, cool. You know, I'll just stay there. I didn't really want to move to no Rock Springs, Wyoming. That's like a dump. But anyways, I didn't have nowhere to go again. Homeless again. That's why I always help the homeless out when people see me doing special things for the homeless, because I've been that person. I've been down and out with But I've had my cars or a car usually to stay in. This time I didn't have no car, you know, because I got rid of my car back then. But anyways, so they're like, all right, you guys can stay here, no problem. So we start heading out, loaded his stuff. We start heading out on the road. Well, we get about, I don't know, maybe like 20 miles out of town, and he calls, his friend calls and he's like, you know what, you know, I don't really know your friend, you know, you could stay, but your friend, you know, I don't know where he's gonna stay because, you know, I don't know him, which is understandable. The guy didn't know me, I didn't know him or whatever, and he didn't want no one brand new, which is, you know, completely understandable. Obviously my character is a really good character, you know, and stuff like that. But my buddy's like, well, I don't want to leave my friend. He just, you know, got out of this relationship, pretty much homeless. I'm kind of homeless right now. I said, all right, man, I got my last paycheck for my last job in Washington State. So I said, let's go to Cheyenne. You know, that's where I'm from. That's where I was born. All right, so we get to Cheyenne. You know, I'm like, you know, scurrying around trying to find places. So we get the newspaper. We're looking through the paper, and we see this apartment, $300 a month, $300 deposit. I'm like, let's go check this place out just to see. It's a little one bedroom, you know, one of us sleep on the couch, one of us sleep in the room, whatever, you know, that's how we're gonna roll with that. So I call the apartment, I schedule the appointment. The lady's all like, well, someone's coming before you to look at it. And I was like, well, what's early? She's like, if you come now. And I remember we sat at the mall. I think we went to like Chick-fil-A or I can't remember what restaurant. We were sitting at the mall eating and, you know, looking at the newspaper for a place, you know, so we're freaking out, you know. So it's crazy because this is the place that I was coming to look at, the same place right now. And we get here or whatever, you know, look around, it's small, you know, it's like, all right, you know, this ain't too bad, you know what I mean? And had like a couch, this kitchen table that I'm on right now, ironically, a couple end tables and no bed or anything like that. Had a couple furniture, had a dresser and stuff like that, which is still mine to this day. So the lady was like, well, if you decide to rent it, you can have the dresser and everything and the furniture and stuff like that. So I'm like, yeah, I like it, you know, and I'm like, well, maybe I should think about it. And the lady's like, well, the other person is going to come if they, you know, offer. So it was crazy back then because most places now you got to get a credit check, background check, you got to show pay stubs, like all kinds of. The lady's like, well, if you have the $600 now, and where are you going to be working? I was like, I'm just going to work at a temp service because I kind of looked at that before, you know. And she's like, all right, well, if you have the first and last month, if you want it, it's yours. So I'm like, oh, yeah. So I give her the money and stuff. It was like my whole paycheck, too. I had like absolutely $0 after that. My buddy ended up going back to Laramie for a little bit because he had furniture over there. So I ended up sleeping on this couch 2 or 3 weeks. He ended up coming back because he still couldn't stay at his parents' house because they were kind of in like a feud at that point. So he brings some furniture up here, you know, a bed, a couple couches, a little coffee table and everything like that. He had a little truck. And so he was staying here for a little bit, you know. He was like, you could sleep in the bed, you know. So we both get these jobs at Lowe's distribution as temps, you know. So I go, you know, we go orientation. It was all right, you know, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't good pay though. It was like $8.50 an hour. So he decides he doesn't want that job. I'm not really feeling that job. I was like, I gotta have a job. So I ended up taking this job, you know, and I didn't have a car at that time. So he ended up like dropping me off to work and stuff in the mornings and stuff, which was cool. So he's like, I'm gonna do like some roofing and siding jobs, side job. I'm like, all right, whatever, as long as you pay your half, man. So he's like crashed on the couch. I was sleeping in the room. We were splitting like $300, which was like $150 a piece, which ain't nothing. So homeboy ends up staying with me, wasn't paying his half of the rent, giving like half to the freaking property management company and taking some out of mine. So we end up getting into an argument. He ends up moving out or whatever like that. And man, that was 16 years ago. I've been here for 16 years in this apartment, and now I'm making that huge move to Las Vegas. Much love to everybody that's been rocking with me. Stay tuned for part 4, the drive to Las Vegas. Much love. More story times coming in the future. Make sure you are subscribed, and we will see you later.